Sharon, you got a plumber.
Oh boy, got the electricity, we got the plumbing. I mean, it's what, and we got a shear. Okay, so I was saying about David's Chota. So it's true. Don't even think he made a mistake. Anyone who says that David HaMelech was Chota and he made a mistake, he didn't make a mistake. What he intended to, he did what he intended to do, and what he intended to do was the Shem Shamayim. So it wasn't even a mistake. His act was an act that was not a mistake. It was L'Shem Shamayim. It was all L'Shem Shamayim. That's what it means. Kol she'omer David Chata. Even if you think about it, doesn't say that David was someone who did something awful. It's not something that he did something with pshia. It's not something that he did something with negligence or with intention. Even if you think that he made a mistake in judgment. It's a mistake. He knew what he was doing, and he did what he was doing, L'Shem Shamayim, but he still had to do tshuva. You still have to do tshuva because of what the people were thinking. So they had to do tshuva. And he did. And it says that it was David HaMelech, in the same very quote, that the whole reason he did what he did was to show the power of tshuva. So that even for a chet, or even for a non-chet, right, not a mistake, but it was something that people perceived as either a mistake or even as a sin. No, not David HaMelech. You have to know that this is a whole different shir. And I'm sorry I'm even spending time on it because it really takes us into a whole different level on who David HaMelech was. And perhaps, Be'ezer Hashem Yisbarach, maybe we should do that. Just to get out, because the world, when I say the world, I mean the entire universe, doesn't appreciate David HaMelech. Okay, let me tell you something. Why didn't David HaMelech build the Beis HaMikdash?
Because of all the wars. Yes.
What? He had blood on his hand. He killed people. That's a terrible thing, no? So how dare you build the Beis HaMikdash if you've got blood on your hands? Absolutely wrong. Wrong. Harbe domim shofachta. So he said, that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu said. Harbe domim shofachta. For what purpose? All the Shem Shamayim. These were Mechemes Hashem. If he didn't do it, there'd be a problem. So why was David HaMelech not permitted to build the Beis HaMikdash? And not only that, but if you look in Divrei HaYomim, where it describes how David was he yearned with all his heart and might that he should be the one to build the place for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We say it in Tehillim, we say it in throughout Tanakh. You see that how can I go to sleep when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sitting in the tents? But you have to know that who's going to build the base? In Divrei HaYomim it describes it with so detail how much money they were able to gather and all the donations and everything and all the plans. David HaMelech got the plan where did he get the plan for the Beis HaMikdash? From Shmuel HaNavi. It was a nevuah. He got it from Shmuel HaNavi, and he was giving it over to Shlomo. Why? Why was Shlomo the one to build the Beis HaMikdash and not David? So he says, Harbe domim shofachta. But he did it L'Shem Shamayim. So I'll answer it with one quick answer. By Yisachar, it says, Yisachar, the bracha that was given to Yisachar was that Yisachar chamor goram, vayar menucha ki tov, vayet shichmo litzbo, vayar menucha ki tov. He saw that resting is a good idea, so he went to work. Vayet shichmo litzbo. He saw that to rest is a gewaltige Sache. So what did he do? He went to work. So I heard from Rabbi Shapiro Zachari Tzaddik Livracha, the way he described it is so beautiful, and it applies to David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech. that Vayar Menucha Ki Tov, only after work. When you put in effort and you try with all your heart and you really tire yourself with your complete commitment to get the job done, and then you do, then Vayar Menucha Ki Tov. So the pasuk says that David, Harvei Domim Shafachta v'Shlomo Bincha Hu Yish Menucha. You did all the work, David HaMelech. You did all the wars, and the wars were for the Shem Shamayim, and the wars was to conquer Eretz Yisrael, and the wars that you did was Kulo L'Shem Shamayim, and you were the ones who prepared the way for Shlomo HaMelech to be able to build the Beis HaMikdash. And he gave it all over to Shlomo HaMelech. So it's a whole, we don't understand what's going on with David HaMelech. We don't, we preach out Bathsheba, he saw her, we kind of relate to it. It's a big mistake. David HaMelech was kula l'shem shamayim. And in fact, Chazal tell us that the only reason it ain't no davar that David chata, because he showed Klal Yisrael the derech of tshuva. But it wasn't even a chet, Kemat. It wasn't even a chet. But Kemat, because the people saw it as a chet.
Right.
Wasn't his timing a little bit wrong?
The problem.
There's always a little bit that, look, nothing is absolute, right? There are, yes, but that would not have been the reason, that there was all this brouhaha on David HaMelech and Bathsheba. This Bathsheba was the mother of Shlomo HaMelech. Remember that. So, all right, I don't know why we got off on this. I shouldn't have done it, but that's it's all your fault. You always do it. Okay. Okay, so we're saying about, remember, this is connected to a degree. This is, what we're trying to establish here is that one of the greatest dangers to spiritual growth is turning something into a habit, ritual. We do it just because we do it. We say Modani in the morning. So, I mean, hello, we make a Asher Yotzar, we make a Shahakol. What do? What are we doing? We have to just spend a moment, a millisecond, thinking about why I'm doing what I'm doing, not because that's the way I was brought up. No matter how lofty the sparks of our ruchnius achievements are, they'll be extinguished by the waters of habits. The more you do things out of habit and not directive yourself, your ideas, your thoughts, your feelings, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's a big mistake. And even Aaron HaKohen, I think the first Kohen Gadol, the greatest Kohen Gadol, he too had to be careful not to take the Shekhinah for granted. And all right, so we don't have the Shekhinah, but we do. And that's part of what we're taking for granted, because we don't realize that wherever, right now, you know what the Gemara says? It's an Avos, it's a Mishnah. Whenever there are 10 people sitting and studying Torah together, the Shekhinah is there. Now, how many of us feel that the Shekhinah is there? Huh? You have to be careful what you say. You have to be careful how you. The Shekhinah is here. Then the Gemara goes on, not only 10, but even 5. And not only 5, but 3. And not only 3, but 2, and even 1. What is he saying? He's saying that whenever we're engaged in Torah or mitzvahs, we have to know that we are in the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Vayachshev Hashem vayishma, says the pasuk. Hashem is paying attention to it. It doesn't just happen. Hashem is paying attention, vayishma, and he hears every word. So we have to become a little bit more careful. This is what the Pasha is teaching us. Not to be careful, not to turn and make it into habitual. You know why? Because the minute something becomes a habit, you get bored very quickly. Over again. Oh, this again. A Shmonesa, another Shmonesa. Yeah, I just finished. I said it yesterday, or I said it by Mincha, or I said another Shmoneh Esrei. That's the have a shoseh batzoma es divreihem. Where it comes to Torah and mitzvahs, you've got to drink it like you're thirsty. You're thirsty, so you're gonna go out. Your neshama is gonna leave from thirst. When you hear something at Divrei Torah and you heard it before, don't say I heard that before. Don't say, oh, I know that. I heard that before. That's not what about I'm looking. We're always looking for something new. You ever get a new watch? Huh? You ever get a new watch?
Yeah.
You know how watches work. You pull it out once, it's the date. Pull it out twice, it's the time. And you know what I'm talking about? The stamp, right? Right? How many times did you read the instructions when you get a new watch?
Yeah.
And how many times do you care until you get the first scratch? Then you get the scratch on that's old hat, right? I mean, that's our. We get used to things, and if we dare not let our avodas Hashem become complacent and just routine. Exactly, that's the word I was looking for. Pasuk says, "V'hanefesh lo temale." V'hanefesh lo temale. V'sabeinu mituvecho. We say no. We heard that, we on Yontif, even on Shabbos, we sabeinu mituvecha. That's on physical things. With the physical, you can satiate yourself, but not with the ruchnius. Never be satisfied with the ruchnius that one has accomplished. There are no limits. Why? Because all ruchnius comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and He is limitless. He is limitlessness in totality. There is no limit. Kachenu b'mitzvosecha v'seichelkenu b'sorosecha. It doesn't say sabeinu mituvecha there, only afterwards. Kachenu b'mitzvosecha v'seichelkenu b'sorosecha, and then it says sabeinu mituvecha. Sabeinu mituvecha goes on the Gashmias, and kachenu b'mitzvosecha, that's limitless. All right, so So when we hear a word in Torah, and instead of saying, "Oh, I know that, I heard that before," how about saying, "What am I hearing new? What is there in this that I didn't realize up until this point?" That's the way a person is supposed to react to Torah. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he described his student, Rabbi Eliezer ben Aruch. He had 5 students. This is in Pirkei Avos. And he described one of his 5 major students was Rabbi Eliezer ben Aruch, and he listed all the milas, all the great attributes of each one of them. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Aruch was Mayon Hamizgaber. He's like a wellspring that is constantly flowing. So, what does that mean? Because he said Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, is Rabbi, that Eliezer ben Aruch was constantly mechadish new things in Torah. Constantly, he was a chidush. And this is why it's called a mayon. What's a mayon? A mayon is a spring. And what do we call a mayon? A true mayon we call mayim chayim. It's life. There is no stagnation in chayim. Chayim has no stagnation because every millisecond of Chaim is new. I'm not live now because I was alive a half a second ago. I'm alive now because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to be alive. It's all Chiddush. And Chaim, Elokim, Chaim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Chaim. All Chaim stands from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's a constant flow, constantly. Mechadesh, Betuvo, Bechol, Yom, Tomi. Everything is new. Chiddush. Now, that's true in our Avodas Hashem. Now let's get a little practical. It also applies to our relationships. You have to work at making them more meaningful, because you can fall into the stagnation, the habit of stagnation, spousal relationships with friends, parents, even children. No, it's a bracha, and it's wonderful, and it is really great, but we end up sometimes perhaps taking it for granted, unless we find something new. So when we find something new, when we come up with a new idea, we share that new idea of how to together achieve things, then it's really ruchni is what's taking place. It's not gashmius. Yaakov Avinu. We've talked about this a number of times. Yaakov Avinu went back for a can opener. Can you realize that? Do you know who Yaakov Avinu was? Do you know how wealthy he was? Do you know how much he had? The Gemara says that he had 600,000 herds of sheep. 600,000 herds, not just 600,000 sheep. He had 1,200,000 dogs to keep the herds in line. Yaakov Avinu was so fabulously wealthy. So he's going back for a can opener? For Pachim Tanim? What does that mean? I mean, that's what the Chazal teach us, and the Pasuk says. Why do you go back? Pachim Tanim. You forgot a couple of can openers. Doesn't make sense, does it? And the answer is because
Little jars?
Yeah.
little whatever. I call it a can opener because it's didn't have cans and didn't have can openers. I know that. Okay. Yes, I do. That's my chiddush. Okay. So now you can think about it as a can opener. Listen a minute. Why? Because nothing about Yaakov Avinu could go to waste. Everything that Yaakov Avinu put effort in, and even if it was the minuscule effort, he got a can opener, got a jar. I don't know, did they have glass then? I'm not sure they had glasses either, but all right. Whatever it was, they went to Pachim Tanim. He put in effort to acquire it. He didn't steal it. He put in effort to acquire it for himself. So there's a piece of Yaakov Avinu in there, and it can't go to waste. Nothing about Yaakov Avinu went to waste. The Navi says it openly. This is the Navi Yeshaya. Yan ki nigash ha'am hazeh. This nation, he's talking about the Klal Yisrael when they were not so nice and not so good. Yan ki nigash ha'am. They came. B'fivu b'svasav kibduni. They mouthed all kinds of honorable things to me in their mouth, in their lips, but libo rachok mimeni. Their hearts were far away from me. V'tihi yirasem osi, and their fear of me was mitzvahs anoshim melumada, just practicing habitual actions, just going through ceremonious things. That's what the pasuk says. I remember Abel Rapian Zacher Tzadik L'Bracha, the way he would repeat this pasuk. You'd make it shudder. Kipivu b'svosam kibdur, you're davening already. I mean, I don't know how many of you go to Minyan and Shachris, but the feeling I get when I go to Shachris in the morning, that the Chazan is trying to get through it. It goes so fast. I can't keep up. So fast. I can't move my mouth as fast as he.
Go to a
can't.
different minion.
Huh?
Go to a different minion.
Yeah, well, you go find me a good minion. You find me a one that is. Man, our minion is great. Don't get me wrong. But when you get these kids getting up to daven, somehow they're taught, and I don't know why. It's not a critique, it's just an observation. There must be that the faster you can say it, the better you are. the more it's not a race. Okay. Shlomo HaMelech said, and I'm just saying psukim now, but it's a pasuk in Mishlei. Mikol mishmar shemor netzor libecha. If you're going to guard anything, guard your heart. And he didn't mean not to eat cholesterol and things like that. What he meant is ki mimenu totza os chagim, because life stems from your heart. So what it means is, what does the Rebbe Shalom want from us? Yeah, he wants heart. He wants us to be focused. He wants us to care. It's interesting when you tell somebody in Lashon HaKodesh that they should pay attention. What do they say? Sim lev. They don't say sim moach. Why don't they say sim moach? I want you to pay attention to what I'm saying. So sim moach. Put your brain into it. No. Put your lave into it. If you put your lave into it, it might affect you. It might have some meaning. Rav Shamshi Yisrael Hirsch, I mean, he was amazing. He calls our attention to the avoda on Yom Kippur. Very interesting avoda. They had 2 goats. They had to be exactly the same weight, the same color, the same height. It's exactly the same. One goes as a korban to Hashem, and the other one goes la Azazel. They throw it over a cliff and they take all of Klal Yisrael's sins with them. Okay? No. So the Kohen Gadol draws lots. Which one goes where? So they're so much alike that he has to figure out which one goes for the korban and which one goes to Azazel. So the one that goes as a korban is for an animal, it's the highest level that any non-human being could possibly attain. It's the highest level is a korban LaHashem. This goat, this man, becomes what? Becomes something that is so precious. Reach nichoach LaHashem. It's a korban to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the other one gets thrown off the cliff. 2 opposites. Exactly the same, but they end up in 2 opposite directions. Now, says Reb Shimshon Raphael, imagine the goats could think. Yeah, they had some cognitive, conscious thought. So the goat that remained then was not shechted, and as a korban, he would stop for a minute. He's very happy. He's still alive, and that poor fellow, he got slaughtered. He's burned on the altar. There's no question that he would think that it's much better. He's in a much better position than his friend, and he's still alive. And then they take him to the top of a cliff surrounding Yerushalayim, and he's filled with the sense of how better off he is than his friend there that got burnt up as a korban. Even at the last moment, the last minute, right before they're giving him a little shove over the cliff, he looks back with disdain. Nebuch, my poor fellow here, I'm still alive. He doesn't know what's going to happen to him. It's a foolish illusion. Says Reb Shamshon Raphael Hirsch, think about that. Because we do have cognitive thought. And we can't think about where are we and what has become. And we look around us and we start comparing ourselves. And it says, our job is to do. And by the way, to be 100% honest, there's no difference between the 2. Because one is doing also Ratzon Hashem. They're both doing Ratzon Hashem. But I'm just taking it from the goat's perspective. We're all goats. And we're looking at it and we say, and we make the mistake. And we look at somebody else and say, oh. And we don't realize that everything we do, the next bracha I make, I can be doing a Kiddush Hashem in such a way. What I'm saying, Baruch Ato Hashem. You, Hashem, I acknowledge that you are the source of bracha. You are the source of everything that. Breishis bara Elokim es hashamayim ve'es haaretz. I must have said this 100 times. Why does the Torah begin with a beis? Wouldn't it make sense the Torah should begin with an aleph? So there is what we call Osios the Rabbi Akiva with a Mishnayos. And in Osios the Rabbi Akiva, it says that actually HaKadosh Baruch Hu started with a tov. But he didn't like the tov, so he didn't start the Torah with a tov. And then he went, all the letters up, right? Shin, Reish, Kuf, Tzadik, Pei, Ayin, all the way up until, he got rid of all of them, except the base. So he goes out, why? Because Beis is the letter that begins bracha. How many bad words start with a base? Says the Ibn Ezra, a lot of not such nice good words beginning with a base. So why did Hashem choose the base to start the creation of the world? And the answer that is given is that base begins bracha because base is bracha. And what is bracha? Bracha means to increase, more. Base is how many? Two. A resh is how many?
200.
200. And a chaf is 20. So it's all two. What is two? It's the minimum of multiplicity. So Baruch, Borech, is bracha, meaning to increase. What's supposed to increase? He says that was the whole intention of creating the world, to increase kavod shamayim. And who's going to do that? Whose job is it? It's our job. We have to bring about kavod shamayim. That's our role. That's why we're a partner with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in creation. So we have to realize that we have to have cognitive thought and conscience and conscious reasoning to recognize what's happening around us. Be aware of what's going on around you. And you look at all this nastiness and stupidity and childish activities and behavior of whom? Of presidents. I don't want to go into that part of it. But, it's all crazy. Crazy. All you got to do is think about it a little bit. It's just, we're living in a time where it's so be aware of your surroundings. So when you drive a car, you have to be aware of your surroundings, that you don't bump into anybody, right? You have to be careful. When you're walking in the street, you have to be aware of your surroundings. Everything is awareness and focused, and that you're committed to one direction. That's all. Kavod shamayim. So the way to prevent falling into habitual avodas Hashem is to keep our awareness current. Don't just say, oh, how stupid that man is, or how ridiculous that people are acting, and say to yourself, it's so in opposition to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. That's all. Not that he's doing it this way, and he's doing it that way, and this one is bad, and this one isn't right, and this one has cockamamie ideas. I mean, I can't, I can't even say the words what's going on in the world today. Don't just say that. Say that it's not being directed to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's our bechira. We have two paths. One that leads to Kiddush Hashem and one doesn't. And even in Ruchnius, we need to be focused on that. Okay. So we have bechira, right? We have free will. Why do we have free will? Why do we have to free will? If Hashem wants us to do the right thing, let him create us in such a way that we always do the right thing. Wouldn't that be nice? I mean, God, it's so easy. I couldn't have, but I have no choice. It's just the way it is. Why? What's this bechira business? Bechira business is because if I do it and I overcome the pull in the opposite direction, and that's why he created the Yetzer Hara, so that I can benefit, because then it's mine. I'm not a robot. I made the choice. I acquired it. I acquired the mitzvah. I acquired eternity, which, by the way, is in every mitzvah. Mitzvah goreres mitzvah. That's all it does. It's like a flowing stream. You know what the Gemara says? The Gemara says that a nachal, that once in 70 years, coming from a spring, yes, that's once in 70 years, if water wasn't flowing through the nachal, it's called a lying nachal. Mayim koizvim. It's lying because you expected it to be constant. It's a mayon. And if it dries up for a moment or for 1 year, once in 70 years, it's mayim koizvim. It's not it can't be a nachal. It can't be a mayon. It can't come from a spring. Because we don't know. All we know is that the water flows from the spring. We don't know how it flows. What makes it flow? Why? Why is there always new water? New one, Novea, Nachal Novea, right? We have a Nachal here. Didn't realize what it's called until I got Waze. I didn't know. You know, it's called Nachal Novea. It doesn't. There's no sign that says Nachal Novea. What's Novea? I mean, I don't have the English word, but it means it's constantly producing more, and more, and more. Okay. You know, those who don't choose to do a mitzvahs, they think they're free, right? Like yeah, they think they're free. Oh, they can do what they want. They're happy. Everybody's happy. I can do what I want. Nobody's restraining me in anything. And I always think about this. Can you imagine Nebuch, somebody on his deathbed, and he knows his time is almost up, and he says, "I only have one regret. I didn't spend more time in the office." Huh? Could you imagine anybody saying such a stupid thing? Huh? That we have to realize that's how they're living their lives. And we're different. We have Torah, and the Torah has opened it up for us and taught us and instructed us. And we know what the ultimate goal is. The ultimate joy is a life that leads to closeness with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, I want to just perhaps touch on one more thing. The power of opposites. It's an amazing thing. We can one of the ways of overcoming the tendency to be complacent and to fall into habitual, that's a trap, is to be aware of the opposition. To know where the opposite leads. It says like this in the Pasuk, in Vayikra K'maasei Eretz Mitzrayim Asher Yeshavtem Bo, like the actions of the land of Egypt that you dwelled there, Lo Sasu, you shouldn't do. Ukamaasei Eretz Canaan Asher Ani Mevi Eschem Shama. Yeah, Lo Sasu. Don't do what the Egyptians did. Don't do what the Canaanim do. Don't follow them. Now wait a minute. What is the fact that you're saying? You're telling us you don't want us to be like the Egyptians, and you don't want us to act like the Canaanim, right? That I understand. But what does it matter whether we were living there or we weren't living there? It says, "Kamas eretz Mitzrayim asher yishaftem bo lo sasu, ukamas eretz Canaan asher ani mevi eschem shama." That I'm bringing you. What difference does that make? Either what they're doing is right or what they're doing is wrong. But the answer is this: when the opposite is there, it strengthens that which is in opposition to it. In other words, we, in a sense, who were moral, Klal Yisrael who were moral in Mitzrayim, Klal Yisrael who were so moral that there wasn't one person in all of the 210 years that they were there that did an immoral act. There was no adultery, except one woman. One woman. And who was this one? She was the Pasuk says the Mekalel, the one that cursed Hashem, was Hu ben Ish Mitzri. This one woman. One woman. What did she do? She had a child with an Egyptian. Was it her fault? Did she intend to? Was it absolutely a mistake? Did he fool her into thinking that he was a Jew? It was her husband? Yes. So what's going on here? To emphasize to us how careful they were with modesty, with morality, with the way, that's what Jews kept. They were so our being in Mitzrayim only accentuated how bad they were. And how bad they were accentuated how great we were in this area. So the opposites, either they come together and they double, or two things that have negativity, when they come together, it explodes. And that, by the way, very interesting. Shatnez. We talk about shatnez. Now, shatnez is a chok. It's a chok, right? It's the one that doesn't really have an explanation, or at least not one that we were given the explanation for. But there are those Rishonim that try to give us a little bit of an insight. And the insight is like this. Shatnez is wool and linen. Where does wool come from? From sheep. Where does linen come from? From the ground. It grows on the ground. It's pishton, right? Now, who was the first shepherd? Hevel. Who was the first farmer? Cain. Okay? They were the first farmer. They brought the fruit, and this one brought the sheep. Hevel brought the best, and Cain brought the worst. Good? Okay. Now, so somehow there must be a relationship here. We got to figure out what's going on. What does it mean to be a shepherd? And what does it mean to be a farmer? So a farmer is, in a sense, far more independent on other people. Yeah, you need rain and you need to be able to seed and so on and so forth, but they're independent. They produce their own food. A shepherd requires other people. They have to graze in other lands. They go from place to place. They have to interact with people. There's a certain level of dependency. And it's so interesting because wool in Chazal, in the Chumash, the coloring of the wool takes on the name of the color. It's Tcheles is blue wool. Agamon is purple wool. Tolah Shoni is crimson wool. The color and the material become one. That's tzemer. Tzameret. What's the tzameret? We say it today. We use that.
Football.
Football. The best. The top. I know what football is. Right? The best. The top. Right? The top. No. You know what's the tzameret? The top of the tree is called tzameret. You know why? Because all the branches come together in the top. They may start out as individual branches, but the leaves and everything come together. The top is called tzameret from tzemer. So the positive of tzemer is it connects. The negative of tzemer is that it can follow the everybody else. They become like purple, so it's purple, like sheep, like Hevel. When did Hevel bring the korban? Only after Cain brought a korban. He saw, so Gevel Gamhu, he was a Gamhu. He was an also ran. That was Hevel. That was his negativity. When the negativity of wool and the negativity of linen, which is what? Bad bebad. You know what they call Pishton? Bad. Why do they call it the bad? Bad is material, fabric. But Pishton is called bad. Ksones bad kodesh, right? He wears a bad. There's a linen ksones. Why? Because Pishton, a linen, grows separately. Each stalk is separate. So we have a very interesting, it doesn't come together. The tzameret, everything is mixed up. The bad, singular, right? So when you are independent and you think you're totally independent and you don't need anything, that's bad. But if you're independent and you're standing up against the negativity, that's good. So when the negativity of wool, mixing up and again following the crowd, and the negativity of linen that they go totally by themselves, and don't you dare touch don't you touch me, because if you come close to me, I'll bite you, I'll hurt you, I'll beat you up, I'll mess up. You got the picture, what he's saying here, that the two negativities come together in shatnez. And if they come together in shatnez, you shouldn't wear it, because it'll have an effect on the person.
But the Kohanim.
What?
The Kohanim.
Yeah, that's different, of course. Why? Why can't I? If the Kohanim, obviously, there's a reason why Kohanim can and we can't. There is a reason for that. Because in the Beis HaMikdash, in the presence of Hashem, the only thing that comes together is the positive. But when it comes to the physicality, where we are, the things that come together that are accentuated are the negative, not the positive. And that teaches us something very important, that we have to start beginning to focus on the positive far more than on the negative. And there's a tendency, the negative, this isn't good and that isn't good, and oh, it's not going to happen, it's not going to be, it's just, what I mean. Oh, no, you really, no. We give up. We don't focus on the positive. And maybe it's going to be positive. Just maybe. You don't know yet. You think so. Why focus on the negative? Yes, ma'am.
This is a hoax, the whole thing about Lenin.
Okay, yeah.
And this explanation, which is really amazing, explains it. But
To a certain degree, yes. But it's like with all time mitzvos, okay? That's not the reason to do it or not to do it. It gives you an insight. There's a message there, but it goes far deeper than that we don't know. That's what I'm trying to say. And let me share with you one last thing before we leave. We all have biases. We all are influenced by our attitudes and the way we somehow distort things. And this is evident in Tanakh. We see it throughout Tanakh. The Meraglim. Why? What was wrong with the Meraglim? What did they do wrong? They thought they were going to lose their the balance of power. They were all Nesiim, and they thought when they'd come into Eretz Yisrael, their negius, their personal gets in the way. And that is where we have to override. That's how we can make sure not to fall into the habit. Don't let our tendencies override what we really know is the right thing to do. And let me share with you just something that I normally don't like to quote all these non-Jew philosophers. I'm going to quote you something from Aldous Huxley. Now, Aldous Huxley was a scientist and he was a philosopher in England. Yeah, but Francis isn't here, so we can talk about it. And he became religious at the end of his life. Yeah, he became a religious Christian. Now, he wrote an essay called Confessions of a Professed Atheist. He writes like this. I had motives for not wanting the world to have meaning. Motives. Consequently, I assumed that it had no meaning. And I was able, without any difficulty, to find satisfying reasons for this assumption, that there's no meaning to the world. For myself, as no doubt for most of my contemporaries, the philosophy of meaninglessness was essentially an instrument of liberation. That's the great word. Why? The liberation we desired was simultaneously liberation from a certain political and economic system, and the liberation from a certain system of morality. We objected to the morality because it interfered with our sexual freedoms. I mean, do you hear what he's saying here? He's saying, don't be fooled. Use your koach of bchira to be pulled in the right direction and distance yourself from those things that we down deep know within our hearts are not the right things. So this is why, by the way, in the Parsha that we have reading Achare Mos Kedoshim, it sets the tone of all the moral laws of Klal Yisrael, of relationships and so on. At the end of each statement, don't do this, ki ani Hashem. Don't do this because Kani Hashem. Morality can't come from me because I have my bias. And a beautiful mashal I like to use for that is you can't pull yourself out of the quicksand by your hair. It has to come from outside of yourself. Can you imagine somebody thinking, don't worry, just pull yourself up. It won't work. Why? Because it has to come from the outside. Unless they throw you a line or they throw you a life preserver, you're not going to be able to achieve it. So relative morality and ethics lead to violence, self-centered, and lack of responsibility. And this is exactly the matzav of our world today. Take a look at the world today. I don't want to go into detail. The more society dresses themselves they are so moral. We care about everyone, inclusive, and we share and we worry about everybody. Except the Jews, yes. Except anyone who's not like them, really. They become more violent and immoral. It's just unbelievable. So, this is what our parshas are teaching us. So Hashem needs to bring Mashiach very, very quickly.
Amen.
You know, because so that not only we, but the world should know that we cannot set a moral code. It has to come outside of us. And the only moral code that is outside of us is the morality that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has implanted within the world through the Torah. And we are so very fortunate. We've got it. Be proud of it. And know that what we're doing, and I always tell this to people, you know, people ask questions, and you have to come from the perspective, I don't know why, lady singing is not good, okay? I'm just picking out of a hat. I don't know why, but I know it's right, because that's what Hashem said to do. I know we're right. We have to know that Torah is right, and with that, we will be the mechanism by which we can bring Mashiach. You're welcome.
Very interesting. Lahafil Elapap Jalo, the governor of California, Newsom, who's trying, is that his name?
No, not, no. Newsom, yeah.
Newsom.
Yeah, I'm
He's
listening.
doing Cheshbon and Nefesh. Where did we go wrong? The whole Democratic Party.
They want to know where the.
You know, like, there's no morality, there's woke ideology, everything is relative. It's the relativism.
If you
that
think he
makes-
wants to know where we went wrong, no. He wants to know what's wrong with the rest of the world that they don't think the way we think.
But his name's Newsom.